What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project XTalk, an Xbox podcast, episode number 139, presented by Save the Game Media. I'm your host, Kevin, and this week I am joined by the man on the moose himself, who's doing a plethora, the gauntlet of podcasts today, some would say, Mr. Ryan Turford from Carpool Gaming. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well. How are you, Kevin? I hope you're having a wonderful. Oh, I forgot to do my whole bit. Oh, it's a nice 25 degrees outside today, Kevin. The sun's shining, birds are chirping. I mean, I haven't been outside in a while because, as you mentioned, I'm kind of on the gauntlet today. This is podcast number 2 of 3 for the day, on top of a 4-hour live stream that I did this morning for the Nintendo Direct and I beat Super Metroid on a live stream today too. So there's that too. So
Wow,
it's been a day.
Yeah, very productive day, some would say. I went to the dentist this morning, so I didn't start the day off very good. The whole prodding at your teeth never really sits well with me, especially because I tend to get gum pain afterwards. Even though it's just a cleaning, but like it hurts. I'm not a fan of the dentist. But we got the Nintendo Direct today. That was a good time. I loved
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Loved it. I actually recorded because we do post shows for our shows, and obviously my co-host is sick this week, so I didn't have anyone to do a post show with. So I did a little Nintendo Direct recap going on, and it was a good time. But anyway, Ryan, this is an Xbox podcast. We're usually live every Thursday night right here on YouTube. But if you miss us on YouTube, we're on your favorite audio service. While you're over there, please drop us that 5-star review, whether it's Apple, Spotify, does help us. And let me tell you, if you drop us that 5-star review, it may help you in the future because we're going to be giving away a copy of that Starfield Ultimate Edition. So stay tuned to the Twitter for details about that. If you want to enter, you might want to rate. That's all I'm going to say.
Wink, wink.
If you want to interact with us more, please come join the Discord. That link is in the description down below. And if you want to support us further, get early access to Save the Game Media content and exclusive bonus post shows, head over to patreon.com/Save the Game Media. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current Patreon supporters. So thank you to Bucky Blue, Amon, Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Brianna's wife, Nikolai at Night, Cypher, Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, The Snack Network, David Hotright, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, and Alpaca Tom. Thank you all. We appreciate each and every one of you. But Ryan, let's get right into it if you don't mind. Let's start the show like we do each and every week, going around the room. And I want to know, what have you been playing, my friend?
So I've been playing a whole bunch of stuff this week. So first off, I finished Diablo 4 this week. Finally, I've been playing it since launch. We talked about it on the Xbox Drive this week, but I have a little over 100 hours in the game at this point. And then I already had 30 hours in the beta before the game came out. So I played Diablo 4 a lot. In fact, because I have like 3 level 40 characters and then a level 50 plus character that finished the game.
Wow.
Because I'm kind of working on Carpool's review for it. So I wanted to, spread my wings a little bit, Kevin, as you know. I wanted to play across the other characters, but also part of the reason thing that kind of held me back from finishing the game up until now was just a myriad of technical issues that I've been running into lately, whether it's the game freezing, which I know people mentioned you could reinstall the game and that should fix that. That didn't fix it for me. It's still happening. Like when my character rolls, especially I try to invade an attack and then the game just hard locks on me, or disconnects are very frequent now, to where I'm like, because I did the final boss, for example, and the final boss, slight spoilers for the final boss, not talking about the boss itself, but the fact that the boss has 2 full life bars that you have to take down. I got to less than 10% of the second full life bar before the game disconnected me for 5 minutes. I came back. My character was not only dead, but then it reset me outside of the dungeon, the final dungeon, to which I had to and reset all my story progress. So I had to redo the entire final dungeon and the final boss again.
Oh man.
Which took like an hour and a half to basically get back to where I was. And it was not a pleasant experience. So it makes me a little bit sad that this game doesn't have an offline mode in some way, because that was one of the saving graces for Diablo 3, at least, was you could play offline. It's part of the reason why at this point I don't see myself ever making a hardcore character in the way that I did in all the past Diablo games, but because I would always play that offline, so you wouldn't have this issue. And it was just so much easier and more reliable to know that if you die in hardcore mode, it was usually your fault. Whereas we're seeing reports of people get to level 100 with their hardcore character, and they lost their character not because of their own fault, but because of disconnects with the server. So at this point, I'm kind of ready to kind of put Diablo down a little bit. I know there's a ton of endgame stuff that I totally want to get into, but I'm also like, I also kind of want to wait for the season pass or the battle pass and other things to come out before I even bother doing that anyways. So I'm actually kind of okay with waiting. Plus there's a handful of games to play right now, Kevin. So there's a lot of things to play. So I finished Diablo 4. That was a lot of fun. I also been playing a lot of Rock Band 4, but I won't touch on that. But because I've been really just kind of getting back into Rock Band again, it's super fun to play by myself, and I really enjoy that. I also played a little indie game called Eternites, which isn't out yet. It's out in September.
Tell me about it. I'm interested.
So it's a fast action game, like a hack and slash game, combined with a dating sim. And I got to play the first 90 hours. Huge thank you to the developer for sending us a slice of the game to do as a preview. I did a whole preview video of it, by the way, over on Carpool Gaming if you want to know my full thoughts. But it's an interesting game where it's like you're in this city, your character's kind of down on your luck, and you join this like new dating app, which somehow coincides with the destruction of society and people turning into monsters and randomly attacking each other. So you're basically trying to escape the city with your friends while also using harnessing the power of love to power this sword that you're able to turn your hand into to destroy the enemies. So the demo, the preview build that they sent it was very fun, and I'm actually really looking forward to the full game. It's just the only downside, of course, is it's releasing like the same week as Cyberpunk's DLC and the week after Mortal Kombat. So
it's September 21st, I believe.
Yeah, September 21st. So that's actually it's the same day as Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is too much.
I that was one that was revealed at the PlayStation showcase or just State of Play a while ago that I wish listed immediately because I was like, okay, I'm feeling this. This looks like a Kevin game, and from your video that I did watch, it does sound like a Kevin game. I think I could have some enjoyable times with this. I see that it's on sale for it's not on sale. It's going to cost $30, but if you pre-order any of PS Plus, you get it for like 25 for US anyway. Do you think this game is going to be a shorter experience because it's clearly more budget title, I would say?
I am getting the sense from what I played that it's probably going to be a 15 to 20 hour game.
Okay,
regardless of the price, which I think is a good price. I think it's perfectly fair for the price they're charging because even when I look at the Canadian price of $34, I think it's going to be worth it for the price, but we'll see. I don't know how the final game's going to unveil itself. Cause like I said, with what I played, it only really in the first 90 minutes only kind of scratched the surface of what you're going into. Cause you didn't even meet all the girls. You only really leveled up to maximum of level 1 with the first romance option, level 1 of 5. So, I think there's going to be a lot of progression in the main game that we just didn't see in the demo, and who knows, there might be some replay value with some of the dating stuff as well. So I think this is going to be one to keep y'all's eye on. And also, there's the demo that I played. Even though there are some elements that were in the preview build that I played that aren't in the demo that's available now, you can play it as part of Steam Next Fest. So if you are interested in checking this out. They did put up a demo for it, and I do think it's worth checking out, or at least having on your radar. I know this is an Xbox show, and this isn't on Xbox, but it is coming to PC, and they did mention it's a timed exclusive for PlayStation. So I imagine it will come to other platforms later, probably Xbox at some point.
Very interesting. I didn't know it was a timed exclusive. I know it was made by a very small team of one guy. He's working on it for years, inspired by Persona. So that's one I've been keeping an eye on. But Diablo 4 is something I've been playing this week as well, Ryan. And much like you, I beat the campaign this week. Me and my brother, we've been co-oping the campaign. We finally beat it. That final boss took us a few tries, to be honest. He would destroy it now. He's doing 500,000 DP damage. He's destroying mobs. He went and did the level 70 capstone dungeon at 62 because his build is crazy. I'm still I'm playing a little more casually than he is. I think
Yeah.
I'm every time I play, I'm getting better gear, getting stronger, but like it's nowhere near those numbers. I'm like, oh, I did 8K. Like let's go. But so it's a slow grind, which I'm because I'm in the end game now. It's a lot of just running dungeons, trying to get gear, and I'm not having the luck with the drops I need. So
Yeah.
it's slow going. But that's Diablo, and the way I'm handling it is like I beat the campaign, which is what I wanted to accomplish for this time period. And now it's just I'm gonna pop in, play a little bit throughout the rest of the year is kind of how I'm looking at this. This is like a long
Yeah.
haul game.
Oh, exactly. That's why too, like that's why I'm not like in a rush to return to Diablo as well, kind of like I mentioned earlier, because this is the type of game where it could be like my live service substitute game. Because I always usually have like a live service game in my rotation of games I play. Usually it's Final Fantasy 14, sometimes it's World of Warcraft. So I think for a while that game that's gonna fill that slot for me personally is gonna be Diablo.
I
In a good way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that approach. I've seen some people just saying like, okay, I'm putting it down, gonna move on for right now and come back to it. But I've been playing so many other games, Ryan. I gotta talk to you about some of these. So I played the Final Fantasy 16 demo
Ooh.
because I was like, all right, I beat a game I was playing, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna play the Final Fantasy 16 demo because I had Monday off for Juneteenth here in the States. So I'm like, I got 2 hours and really impressed. I walked away very excited for Final Fantasy 16, especially with the reviews coming out today, glowing. I know it's again not on Xbox, but this game I think is going to be something special. Like I know some people were complaining about like performance mode issues, and I had a few dips here and there.
Well, if you
Nothing that
play
like
in performance mode, the frame rate's kind of all over the place, and I think that's
really.
the main criticism. Because it's kind of like Jedi Survivor in that way, where it's not like a locked 60.
It definitely wasn't locked. I didn't think it was like super egregious though. I mean, I do have
You should go watch
VRR
the
and like
Digital
everything.
Foundry review
Really?
that they put up today. It's outrageous.
Okay.
Whereas it's kind of all over the place, but I'm actually like very excited for 16 as well. As you
Yeah.
probably know, Kevin, it's like my most anticipated game for the year. So I'm actually glad that you enjoyed the demo. I also really enjoyed the demo too. It might have been one of the best demos I ever played.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
I'm digging the story. It's got that political. I'm like, it's kind of like Diofield. Is how I kind of feel like about. It's
yeah.
like that medieval political storyline going on right now, and I'm here for it. So
Did you also
combat
play
felt really good.
the? Did you play the iconic challenge at all?
I didn't play the iconic challenge.
Oh man,
No.
it's really good too. But yeah, since the game's coming out, you probably don't need to play it, but
Yeah.
it gives you a preview of the later game abilities because you have access to 3 of the different icons that you can kind of switch between in battle, and the way that those kind of layer on top of the combat system and the strategy you have to employ when using them is just so satisfying. Like there's like you get access to Titan's ability where you can like if you do like a perfect parry, you can then really like punish the enemies, and it all kind of caps off with this incredible boss fight at the end. That was just like so cool to play through. So
Awesome. If I get some time, I mean, it's coming out tonight, so I'll
yeah,
probably just
you might as well just play
wait.
the game at that point.
Yeah. I have been playing some other actual games though, so I want to talk to you about this one because I know you played this. The Devil in Me, the Dark Pictures game that came out a few months ago, I believe. At this point, these are games that I always play through with my girlfriend. She likes 2D platformers and these sort of narrative, like pick your own adventure type games, especially when they're horror themed. We played through a lot of the Dark Picture ones so far. Um, this might be the best Dark Pictures game. I
Yeah.
think this might be Supermassive's best game since Until Dawn, if anything. Like, I really like this game.
It was really good. It had like a great creepy atmosphere. I really like the choices in this one because some choices that I thought would actually keep the characters alive killed one of the characters as an example. I also because I did a review for Carpool back in the day, back when it did come out, because it was late last year when it came
Hmm.
out.
Oh, okay.
And I remember saying in that review, and this still sticks to me to this day, the bad ending for that game, if you go back and play the bad ending for that game, is one of the most memorable endings of any recent game I've played in a long time. It's really stuck with me, and I really thought that was actually like one of my favorite endings in games in a while. So and it has some great moments as well. Like I really enjoyed The Devil in Me a lot. In fact, I actually did I was guested on a separate podcast where we did like a giant spoiler cast for it as
Wow.
well, like a couple months ago, because another podcast had just kind of made it like their book club game, and they were also raving about it as well. And yeah, I would agree with you. I personally still liked House of Ashes more.
Haven't played that one. That's on our wish
Okay.
list next.
Okay, because yeah, I liked House of Ashes a little bit more, but I did really love Devil in Me as well. I think both are very solid. And I can't actually wait for the next one, because they announced they have that sci-fi one that's coming out either sometime this year or maybe it gets delayed till next year. But that, if it kind of keeps on this trajectory, like I think it could be like a really solid entry too.
Yeah, I'm glad they're kind of finding their footing with these, because I played Man of Medan and it was like, all right, this isn't great. It didn't feel that good. And now it's like you can see them getting better. And this is kind of where I feel like this genre should be for them. Because we're almost at the end. I think we'll wrap it up this weekend probably. And we got all the characters outside. Only one person has died so far, which I thought there were a few where it's like, oh, we had like 3 people dead, but then 2 of them were still alive. And I was like, this is very good, like twists, and it's actually scary is the big thing for me. Like the atmosphere, I've had some jump scares, so like really well done. I'm enjoying this one a lot.
Not only that too, but it's also very unique when you consider other horror games, because we don't get a lot of modern horror games that are slasher in the
I
slasher
think
genre.
that's why I like it.
Yeah, because we like, other than Friday the 13th or Dead by Daylight, like what other horror games that are in like that we get are in this style, like where it's a slasher genre game. Like we don't really have any. So I think it felt like a breath of fresh air when I played it, because I think like this style of game works perfectly for the slasher genre in particular.
Yeah, and it's based on the like America's first serial killer too,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Like
actually a real thing. Like I went and actually looked it up
yeah,
afterwards. It's a
super
whole real thing.
super interesting.
Yeah.
I'm liking it. So check that one out if you haven't. I got it on game. I don't buy physical games, but I got GameStop had a buy one get one for like new versions, and it was any new game, and then they had this price at $30. So then I got this, and then I got also the Callisto Protocol for it was my free game. And I'm about to wrap this one up. I'm either gonna wrap it up tonight or tomorrow. I'm almost at the final chapter. I'm like at the tail end of the second to last chapter. So they're like an hour long each. Not an overly long game. And I gotta say, I feel lied to. This
Oh,
game rocks. This game is awesome. I really, really like the Callisto Protocol. I'm looking at reviews and I'm like, I have never felt more disconnected, because I played Dead Space for the first time this year,
right.
the Dead Space remake, and I know this might be blasphemy. I kind of like this game more than that.
Blasphemy! How
I,
dare you say that, Kevin?
I,
No, I think it's just different strokes for different folks, if I'm being honest, because I think a lot of reviewers who got paired up with the Callisto Protocol at their, companies were people who really enjoyed Dead Space and were looking for the next Dead Space. And the fact that
it's
this
not Dead
wasn't been
Space.
Dead Space, I think really, it was not, and the style of game, I think really appeals to certain people. Because like for me, I actually agree to an extent on as far as, the atmosphere, the story and things like that, like and the actual pacing of the game. But I don't agree with you in the sense that I personally don't jive with the combat in the way
Okay.
that I did with Dead Space, where I enjoyed the almost the Metroidvania aspect of Dead Space more, and the ranged combat more in something like Dead Space versus the heavy focus on melee combat that this game has,
Mm-hmm.
which is part of the reason why I think I just wasn't as into it as something like Dead Space. But at the same time, for people who are into that kind of thing, I definitely think like this is going to be way more up your alley probably than something like Dead Space.
It's definitely a unique combat system, and I know I said this in the Save the Game Media Discord, and everyone came for me, and they were like, Kevin has no idea what he's talking about, just him liking bad games again." Which I'm telling y'all, this isn't a bad game. I would put this in like the 8s. Like I think
Yeah.
this deserved to be in the 8s category, mainly because like it's a progression for the combat. Like you start with only your like melee weapon, and then it teaches you like the dodge mechanics, which are very easy. Like you just wait for them to swing, and then you hold. Like it's not even a timing thing. Like you just hold it. and then you counterattack. It's a very simple system, and then you get introduced to the guns, which I think I have like 5 now at this point, and I like the starting weapon the best, which is like very Dead Space, because I think the plasma cutter is the best weapon for me in Dead Space.
Yeah.
Like consistently used. This is very much that. It doesn't have the like blowing limbs off type approach that Dead Space has, but I think the gravity like gauntlet you get in Callisto where you grab them, I like that more than I barely use stasis in Dead Space, which my brother tells me was a mistake, and that's not, you should be using that a lot
Well, it
more.
just makes the game too easy if you use stasis too much.
But
But
like here, I like grabbing enemies and then there's spike walls everywhere, or sometimes I'll just chuck them off a platform and be like, bye, I'm not dealing with you. So that was a good progression. And then the last half of the game so far, like, or the last 2 chapters, is very stealth focused. Like I'm crouching, getting stealth knife kills in the back of these guys against blind zombies or whatever they are.
yeah,
I'm like, man, this is really, really enjoyable. I do
yeah.
not understand why it got panned so heavily.
Now, I will throw this caveat in here because you are playing it after launch.
That's true.
This game was real rough at launch when it came to budget bugs, glitches, crashes. Like that was one of the reasons I actually put this game down, and I still haven't gone back to it because I just haven't really found like the time or the motivation to want to go back and replay it because I never finished this game. Like
Ooh.
because of the problems at launch, because we were lucky enough to get a review code for this one,
Mm.
and I was definitely trying it out, but I couldn't finish it because the game kept crashing.
Oh.
So I think that also, because I know a lot of reviews mentioned that too, where that was definitely a thing in the launch window for this game. Which just goes to show, like, when you're reviewing a game, like you have to kind of weigh how much that factors into your score when you're scoring some of these things, because your review, unless you're going to go back and update it later down the road, like like if someone goes to read your review later, like how much stock can they really put in your opinion when you deducted 4 points from out of 10 because of the bugs and glitches that you had at launch, right? Because a lot of that stuff has been ironed out by now, as far as I know of, or as far as I've heard from other people who've gone back to
I
it.
haven't had any
Yeah,
issues. I've kept it in quick resume the whole time, worked flawlessly, like
yeah.
absolutely no issues. I'm having a great time. So maybe this is a case of it paid off for me to be patient on this
Mhm.
game.
Yeah. And I kind of
But
want to go back to it too with that DLC coming as well, like because I have the season pass for it, so
mm,
I will have access to the DLC when it comes out. So I am excited maybe to try it again when the DLC comes. I think that's maybe my window to go back to it.
you know what's funny is the copy I probably won't do the DLC. I'll probably just finish the story, but the copy I have is the day 1 edition. And I
Mhm.
was like, how long has this been in your drawer at GameStop that it's the day 1 edition? Have you had this in here 7 months and nobody has bought this game?
It didn't
Like,
sell well, like it because it underperformed, and I think a lot of it has to do with the reviews, Ben.
that's crazy. Well, last game, then we'll get into the news. I want to touch on Crash Team Rumble, Ryan.
My
Uh,
God,
no, I am a huge Crash Bandicoot fan.
I know.
I was here for the Crash Team Rumble. I liked the beta. I had a good time. I've been playing Crash Team Rumble. It's one of those, I got a 30, 40 minutes downtime. I'm going to pop in, play a few matches because they are quick, like 4 or 5 minute matches. Man, I still like this game. I know it's getting 7s, I think, is the where it's fallen in the reviews. Nothing,
Mhm.
nothing too
Which
special.
not isn't bad. That's good.
Yeah, it's fine, but there's no like aggressive microtransactions. There's no over the like pay to win stuff. It's literally just like play this weird Crash Bandicoot MOBA esque style game where you collect Wumpa and score, and you got different maps. Me and Jam Pack Sam over there, for a friend of the show, he's also playing it. We played together yesterday. We destroyed some people. Like it's so much fun. Like I'm having a good time by myself. Having fun when you play with other people, I think elevates it. Sure, you'll get stomped a few times, especially because I think matchmaking isn't quite where it needs to be, or maybe it's not selling very well because you do get a few matches with some bots. And if
Yeah.
you got a bot on your team, it's basically game over. Unless the other team has a bot as well, then they're useless. The AI doesn't, they don't do
That's how
anything.
every MOBA works, Kevin. That's the secret. If you're ever in a low population match and you get magic, you have bots on your team, you may as well not be playing.
What I've been doing is I don't ready up fully until I see a full team, and then like I'll leave, like I'll peace out. I don't want to deal with the bot matches. It's not a good time. And it has crossplay too, which I expected it to be more. It is weird though because it's not on Switch, it's not on PC.
Mhm. The
So
support documents for the game say that it's on Switch. So
what?
I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't announce it for Switch today, because it sounds like it's coming to Switch at some point. Because if you go to the Activision support site, it lists Switch as one of the platforms. So it's weird that it's not on Switch at this point. I'm assuming it comes to Switch at some point. So, and yeah, that's even weirder that it's not on PC. But I also think, it's just with the release timing, because it's a very, very new game. It just might be that not a lot of people are picking this up because Final Fantasy 16 is literally right there. Or
I was asking for them to delay it, but now looking at the rest of the year, I'm like, I don't even know where they would delay it to. Like
yeah,
December's the only open month at this point.
it's fine. Just more games for October, Kevin. Like that we don't like the fact, even the fact that we literally have Spider-Man and Mario coming out on the same day. It's just like, what are we doing here?
Mental. Well,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying Crash Team Rumble though.
Nice. Now, before we go to the news, Kevin, if I might segue once more, do you mind if I give another game a shout out real quick?
No, go for it.
So the one other game that I played this week that I didn't mention earlier is Aliens Dark Descent. It actually came out earlier this week. That is the tactical strategy Aliens game. This is from Focus Home Entertainment. Just came out on Tuesday, so I'm only literally half an hour into the game because I finished the first mission in Aliens Dark Descent. But a very, very cool game. I was one that, I like heard mixed things about, because the reviews for this game, Kevin, if you want to talk about a game where the reviews are all over the place for it, this is one of those games where people are giving this game's 10s, saying it's the best Aliens game ever. People are giving it 3 out of 10, saying the game is unplayable and terrible. And like every like iteration in between. In fact, on OpenCritic, on Monday, when the embargo lifted, this game was sitting at a 69. If you go to OpenCritic now, this game is like approaching an 80 pretty quickly. So again, reviews have been kind of all over the place, and I imagine that number is going to fluctuate even more as more reviews come in. But the setup's kind of cool. So it takes place on this big space station, and those dang Weyland-Yutani folks, they decided, hey, we're gonna smuggle xenomorphs again, and we're gonna capture them and send them across the galaxy, because this seems like a smart thing to do. But when they get loose on the ship, you have to kind of band together. Like, you play as like this flight officer who doesn't have any weapons, of course, to kind of like ratchet up the scary factor, because you're exploring this spaceship by yourself, and it's all like dark, and because the aliens cut the power, and you're trying to link up with the Marines so you can kind of escape, and it was really cool. Like, it felt like it had the tone and the feel of the Alien films, combined with this tactical action where once you link up with the Marines and then you have weapons available to you, you're then kind of exploring these dark corridors of the ship. You're rescuing people. You have a bunch of different objectives available to you. And then once you finish the first mission, you then have this hub base, and it's kind of like XCOM, with a bunch of different facilities that you then do research for and do upgrades for as you progress through the game. You also have to hire Marines as your Marines die, because this game does have permadeath like XCOM does. You can also your Marines can also be injured, or there's a morale system for the Marines, like they can get scared off, or and each of the Marines has like a different thing they're afraid of. So if you scare them too much, they might run off, or they might kind of go crazy. So there's a lot of interesting layers to this game. And I'm excited to dive into more of it, because I'm actually having a pretty good time with this game. And I was not expecting it to kind of blow me away or be super interesting, but I love the Aliens franchise. So whenever a new game comes out, I always like to give it a try. I mean, last month on Carpool, I even did like the history of Alien games. like a whole video on that. So I've been eyeing this one from afar, and I knew it was coming out this week. And even though Final Fantasy is coming out this week, I wanted to at least give it a try. And so far, so good with this game, man.
Is this on Xbox?
It is on Xbox. It's on Xbox,
Okay.
PlayStation, and PC.
Because OpenCritic doesn't list it on Xbox, but I assume it just says PC and PlayStation. So very weird. But
no, it is.
77, I love tactics games. So maybe that's one I might wish list.
This one's closer to something like if you ever checked out Full Spectrum Warrior on the original Xbox back in the day, it's closer to something like that, where it's not turn-based tactical like XCOM. It's real-time strict strategy, but you don't have to, like, you're not controlling like a ton of units. You're controlling a squad of 4, and then it's really smart and intuitive with the way it does this. They all move as a group as you kind of move them across the map, and then when you interact with objects or when combat happens, it smartly picks out, hey, if you're interacting with this door, it'll send one Marine to interact with the door while the other 3 will shoot aliens while they're interacting with things. So it's actually really smart and intuitive, and it's definitely one of those games where you can totally play without playing it with a mouse and keyboard. Like, I'm playing on console using a controller, and I've had 0 issues so far with the control of this game.
That's awesome, man. I haven't heard much about this, but as I've said many times, Focus, they're killing it lately. Focus Interactive, all right, everyone. Plague Tale, #1 fan, but listen, they got tons of other good games coming out, all right? They had that Evil West game I really liked. They got Space Marine coming out.
And this is their second time at bat with the Aliens franchise, because we got Aliens Fireteam Elite a couple of years ago, which was
I played that.
Yeah, which was okay. Like, it wasn't great or amazing or anything like that. It was fine. It was fairly generic. Whereas this, I feel like, has more promise than that game, and I'm more potential. So I'm excited to get into it more later in the year.
Awesome. Well, I'll surely hear more from it on the Xbox Drive. But Ryan, let's jump into the news. The news was pretty light this week until Xbox decided to break a story right before you went live and a few hours ago. So story number 1, Xbox is raising the price of the Series X and Game Pass. So this comes from Tom Warren over at The Verge. Microsoft is increasing its Xbox Series X prices in most countries in August, apart from the US, Japan, Chile, Brazil, and Colombia. The Xbox maker is also increasing the monthly prices of its Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriptions for the first time. The base version of Game Pass will go from $9.99 to $10.99 a month, while Xbox Game Pass Ultimate will go from $14.99 to $16.99 per month. PC Game Pass will be unchanged. If you're a current subscriber, the change won't go into effect until August 13th, while new Xbox Game Pass members will see the new prices starting July 6th. If you're subscribed yearly, the new prices won't go into effect until the end of your current period. In terms of consoles, Series X pricing will largely match the price of PS5 now in areas outside the US, which means a $50 increase in most areas. Series S will not be adjusted. Ryan, how are we feeling? Xbox, I know Phil Spencer said a few months ago that their prices had stayed pretty stagnant, and then they gave us the $70 games for the start of this year. I expected them to wait a little longer, but it looks like they're following suit with PlayStation, increasing the price of consoles and Game Pass. So how are we feeling?
I think it just has to do with inflation in, the countries that this really affects. Because even though I know you live in the States, Kevin, I live in Canada, where the prices are actually increasing here. Like, we are part of this, where we actually did get Canadian pricing on a lot of this stuff as well. Because I think, like, Game Pass Ultimate now is $18.99 Canadian, and the console itself is going up to $649.99 Canadian. Is where the Series X kind of lives, and this move honestly doesn't surprise me, because you could have seen this a million miles away. And I have to at least commend Xbox for holding out as long as they possibly could with this kind of thing, because to the point where they can only operate at as much of a loss that they're operating on with some of this stuff for only so long, especially Game Pass in particular, where Game Pass has been, that price has stayed constant for forever, and it makes perfect sense for that to go up in price as more value is being added to Game Pass. And I personally don't have a problem with that, because I see the value in Game Pass that it offers, and the price isn't that much more than what it is before. And likewise, if people are upset about this and they want that price, Like that now's the time to kind of lock in and get it at the current price at this point, or like just do what Donnie Reese does at this point, where our friend over at PSPG, who has his Game Pass up there like 2028 at this point, so he never has to worry about this particular issue. But so it's a subscription service, so you kind of expect this. At one point, the console is kind of the more bitter pill to swallow, because it almost feels like the people that, because normally in a console's life cycle it pays to not be an early adopter, whereas this console cycle in particular, it's almost paid off to be an early adopter, which is weird to think about, where a lot of times the consoles will go down in price over time, so if you don't jump in right away, you're usually saving some bucks. But now it's the opposite of that, especially because of how hard these consoles were to find in, like, at the start of the generation, where I think a lot of people just didn't jump in right away, not because they didn't want to jump into Xbox, but because they couldn't, because you couldn't buy an Xbox anywhere. So I do think that's harder to swallow, but I also think, again, it's just like everything else is more expensive now, especially here in Canada, where inflation is kind of out of control at this point here in our country in particular. So, it doesn't really surprise me at this point. But what do you think about this, Kevin? Because I'm curious.
I'm a little more down on it. I understand that this was going to happen. I get that from a realism perspective. Phil Spencer told us as much, I don't know, 8 months ago or whatever,
Yeah.
that it would go up. I had always held steady that I didn't think it was going to go up until at least the end of next year. And I still think that that would have been a better move, because we're just coming off 2022, where they released only Pentiment, a small first party game. Yes, Game Pass had some additions, but in terms of first party output, which is supposed to be the big draw to Game Pass, you didn't deliver. And now that you have an Xbox Showcase, which has been positively received, you're like, okay, we're back in everyone's good graces. Let's up the price. You haven't delivered the games yet. You haven't shown us the value yet. I think Game Pass is a great value right now. I think that they needed to wait and then deliver us things like Starfield, Hellblade 2, Avowed, and then when every one of those games is the great game that they're telling us it is, then they say, okay, clearly the value is now something different. Let's increase the price by the $1 or $2. Is it a lot? No, it isn't that much more a month. At $2 more a month, it won't really feel any effect, right? It's $24 more a year if you want to look at it that way, which is like, it's not, in the grand scheme of things, a big deal. But also I look at it as it's Microsoft. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They don't really need $24 more a month per person. Like the anti-capitalist in me is kind of cynical in that nature, where I'm like, okay, they're just being greedy. The realist in me is like, yes, I understand they're operating at a loss with consoles. They're dealing with inflation and all these things. They're trying to get their stocks to go up, all this stuff. And then they seem, if anything, Ryan, I don't know, you might disagree. You can let me know. This to me is them signifying we're very confident that Activision Blizzard is going through, that we're going to be adding that value to Game Pass. So we're going to increase the price now.
Maybe, but I still feel like this would have happened this year, regardless of how they felt about the Activision Blizzard deal. Because I feel like it's just a natural progression, especially like with the raising of the price of the console. Now that I think more about it, because of operating costs in the countries that the price is being raised in, I think affects things more than anything. And yes, they're a $1 billion company, but they also don't work for free, which and nor can we realistically expect them to. And part of that is
realism.
Yeah, and I'm very, it's one of those things where I'm very much that kind of person where I can understand because I've worked in business before, and I definitely understand that a business has to at least exist as a big business, or else we don't get things happening with Microsoft. So I do understand that, and not on that too. It'd be different. I feel like I would feel differently about it if they were vastly outpriced, or if they vastly increase the price over what PlayStation's doing. But just coming up to the same price standard as PlayStation, to me, it makes it this personally less of a egregious deal for me personally. Where yes,
Yeah.
even though they haven't proven anything with those games yet, I really feel like even if they had no games coming out this year, Kevin, or if they had a very poor showcase, this would still happen anyways. And whether or not that's a good move or not is something we could definitely debate. But yeah, I'm definitely more in the realism camp when it comes to this stuff. But
Mhm.
I that's just because I like it'd be different if it was more expensive than the PlayStation 5, in which case I would be like more upset about it. But
I just wanted to look what PlayStation is because I have Plus Premium, but I did the stacked PS Now before they switched over, so it converted me. So I have it until next April. Like I'm
yeah,
set for another year, which I think goes back to what we were saying. Like if you if that extra $24 a month is kind of like teetering on the edge for you,
mhm,
like there are ways to get this cheaper where you get the Xbox Live Gold cards that are on sale on, I think CD Keys has them right now, a year for like $40. So you can get 2 years and then you let your Game Pass expire and you do the conversion trick. All right. Which
yeah,
probably won't be around for much longer. All right.
probably not.
They're getting rid of the $1 deal. They're raising the price. Like I imagine they're going to start cracking down on things like that. So if it doesn't have to be for CD Keys, like you can go and get Xbox Live Gold at the store or wait for a sale. Like
Yeah.
hopefully it'll still be going on, but there are ways to get this for extended at a cheaper price.
Well, yeah, especially like physical retailers here in Canada, like those cards, like the 1 year card, like 1 year subscription cards and stuff like that, go on sale often. So, and I imagine even after the price increase, that still ends up happening.
Hmm.
So I actually think there will be ways in here where if you don't want to pay that full price, there will be ways to get around that. Now, I also should make a important clarification here, and that's this plays into a little bit of my personal bias, and I have to at least disclose this that I personally don't pay for Game Pass, but it is provided to us by Xbox Canada. So just be aware that there is that bias there when I'm talking about some of that stuff. But even
Mm.
as a consumer, when I was buying Game Pass, it's one of those things where I never stayed subscribed to Game Pass all the time anyways. I would only subscribe when I would be playing a game, and then I would unsubscribe when I do that. And even if that went up by the $2, let's say, per month, I know personally I would be okay with, paying that little bit of extra if I was in those shoes. But
I think a lot of people. Disclaimer: my brother pays for Game Pass and we share it, and I pay for PS Plus Premium and we share that. So
mhm,
we're splitting the costs. We get more use out of one or the other, is depending. But there are ways like you can Game Pass
mhm,
if you didn't know that. So there you can split the cost there with another person. We have the family plan that's supposed to be coming. So
yeah. I think
hopefully
that's
this
going to help
isn't too
too. The
big a hit.
family plan in particular, I think, is really going to help with something like this as well.
I think the console price raising is maybe a little more egregious to
Yeah.
me. Because in my mind, it's almost 3 years into the life cycle. We're like 2.5, right? The fact you're raising it by $50, I think you needed to keep it 500, keep it less than PlayStation, because when people go to the store, they see like, okay, the consoles are pretty similar, but one's cheaper. Like I'll pick that one up. I still think that is a good value proposition and it looks good, but the fact that they're the same now, it's like people are gonna
Yeah.
think about less money. They're just gonna go with
But
whichever
again,
one
this
is
is
most
only
popular.
I think part of that is because you don't live in the world of Canada or other
That's true.
countries where like console increases like this are uncommon for us here, where that happens all the time. Like especially during the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation, where that was very much also a thing, where the Xbox One went up in price multiple times throughout the course of the life cycle here in Canada, and so did the PlayStation 4. Like that's very much always been a thing in our country, and I think a lot of the countries that are affected by this are kind of are in the same boat, because of the dollar conversion plays into that too. Because you have to
Mhm.
remember is like we at with the console at its current price, we are actually paying less when you do the conversion from United States dollars to Canadian dollars than you guys are paying for the console before taxes, because of course we get kind of raked over the coals in taxes kind of here because
Mm.
it's 15% on every purchase that you make here in this province.
Jeez.
um
Mine's 7.
yeah, so so when you can do the conversion, it actually is less. Whereas now when you do the conversion with the updated price, we are actually paying just over what you're paying in the States when you do the
Okay.
conversion from Canadian to American dollars. So that the fluctuations in currency also plays in a little into this too, because we're actually
Good
starting to
point.
see, for example, $93 games popping up here in Canada, because that is more in line with what the actual conversion is between the U.S. and Canadian prices for games is. But
That is mental to me. I know the number. I know it's converting, but the numbers would scare me
oh, I
off.
know. It's very silly. Like we're almost at the point in Canada where before tax, it'll be 100 Canadian dollars for game. And then it's 15% on top of that. It's 115 bucks.
I think my girlfriend would kill me if I told her I was going to spend that much on a
Yeah.
game.
And that's just for the normal version too, not the collector's edition. Like actually, up here, Dead Island 2, in Canada, if you want the digital version of that game, it's 100 Canadian dollars before tax for just the normal version. But the reason I have the physical like collector's edition is it was like $115 for that in Canada, which was $15 more than the normal version of the game digitally, and includes all the DLC. And it got a nice seal book and some cool stuff in the box. So yeah, there's stuff like that. Like I said, the Canadian waters are interesting when it comes to pricing. Which again, like that's also the reason I kind of am a little bit more okay with it, because I think when you do the actual conversion, we're getting less of the deal we got before, which I think is actually okay.
I still maintain they need a digital Series X.
Yeah,
Like lower the price, get rid of
Sean said
that
the
disk
same thing
drive.
too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I think him and I have been in agreement on this for a while because like I got the digital PS5. I would have loved a digital Xbox to go along with it.
Well, if you want a digital only Xbox, there's a console for you, Kevin. It's the
No,
Series S.
I want a powerful one though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's also where this plays into the value a little bit, where they where when comparing to PlayStation, because they have the Series S. So if you don't want to spend the 649, the Series S is exactly the same price, which is very cheap here in Canada. Like even the 1 terabyte one, I think is 449 Canadian here, which
Yeah,
is
it's $50 more than the
yeah
500, which in my mind I was like, oh, that's why they're releasing the 1 terabyte ones, so they're gonna make more of those ones probably and get that extra $50, but they didn't raise the price.
yeah
Is how I'm viewing it.
exactly. And that 1 terabyte one, when you compare that to Switch prices here in Canada, that is cheaper than the the Tears of the Kingdom special edition Switches here in Canada. So when you do the math like that, like I think that actually that this move is a little bit more softened with the Series S being probably the more popular option, at
I
least
think
in
it
our country
is.
in particular.
No, I think the Series S is the most like more popular than the Series X in general.
Mhm.
I I've seen PlayStations in the wild. I've seen Series S's. I've never seen a Series X. I know they said they increased their production. I haven't seen it yet. Like
Yeah.
Series S, I could go buy 16 of them right now at Target, but not gonna find an X.
I think they increased the supply of them because I saw some in my local Best Buy with the Diablo bundle in particular. Like I
Mm.
saw a lot of those on shelves, trying to sell that get the copy of Diablo with the console.
Well, listen, if you want Game Pass, stack it, or you can pay the new price. That's still a great deal, especially with the new games that we've been promised after that showcase. But like we gave you some tips, so hopefully that helps you out, save some money. But
Yeah,
let's move on, Ryan. Story number 2, and this one broke last week, but we didn't get to talk about it because we're talking about the Xbox showcase. It was a whole. It was too long, okay?
yeah.
But Embracer Group has announced a downsizing plan. So, like I said, this was announced last week, but Embracer Group has announced a restructuring program to, quote, make us a leaner, stronger, and more focused, self sufficient company. They say the program will transform them from their current heavy investment mode to a highly cash flow generative business this year. It will lower their net debt significantly, and after completion, will generate growth and profitability with less business risk and higher margins in the PC console segment over the coming years. Unfortunately, Embracer's plans will see them significantly reduce their size. They currently employ 17,000 employees, which is nearly the size of Ubisoft, with over 130 studios. By the end of the year, they will reduce their size through studio closures or consolidation, which will also lead to some current projects being canceled. Crystal Dynamics, who was recently acquired, has confirmed that they will not be affected and their work on Perfect Dark and the next Tomb Raider will continue without issue. Ryan, what are we making of Embracer Group here? Clearly, some changes coming. They own a lot of studios, is an understatement. A lot of IP that people love. But what's your reaction to this?
They flew too close to the sun between Saints Row kind of being a commercial disaster last year to the $2 billion deal that kind of fell through. Like the writing's kind of been on the wall a little bit for them. Where they don't get me wrong, I actually give credit where credit's due with Embracer for taking risks on a lot of stuff and for buying up a lot of old IPs and being like, what can we do with this? Like how can we make this a thing that people want to play again? And I applaud them for at least trying new things and for trying new and weird stuff. But at the same time, there is that business reality where if if you expand too much and you have like at one point they were mentioning they have like 115 games in development, and it's like that's too much. Even there's a reason why, even as big of a company as EA is, as an example, or Ubisoft is, there's a reason why Ubisoft or EA don't have 115 games in development. It's just that model just doesn't work. And it just can't be propelled forever, because especially if you invest too much in one IP and that falls through, well, you're kind of left holding the bag here, which is kind of what happened here, where it is almost reminiscent of what happened with THQ when THQ went out of business, where they kind of went all in on UDraw for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, and they had so much overhead stock that it just drove them out of business at that point. And then they had to sell off all their IPs and kind of went out of business at that point. So that's kind of what this reminds me of. So I am like, this is the type of thing that I saw coming a million miles away when they started, getting IPs. Is eventually they would get to this point where they would have to do a large downsizing, and that sounds like that's what's happening here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had that impression that Embracer, how could they possibly sustain themselves, right? Like it is just too much, too fast. I kind of always in the back of my mind wanted them to succeed, because I do think they have a good family of studios, and I've liked some of the games that have come out of Embracer Group. I know they own Gearbox now, right? Like they had the Tiny Tina's come out, and then they also make THQ, or they make the SpongeBob games. Like they've had a lot of good IP that I really enjoy come out recently, but they've also had a lot of a lot of flops, like Saints Row. They did do Dead Island 2, which is selling well and reviewed.
It's also a good
well,
game. So like they to your point, Kevin, I think they've had some great releases, and it really is just a shame that they have had a couple games kind of buckle them a little bit here.
I think I've always pictured them as like, okay, they should be making AA games for the most part, and then the occasional AAA game, which I think under their new model they might do just more safer AAA style games. Because if you look at their portfolio, I think it's pretty easy to pick what studios are going to be closed and what studios aren't going to be closed. Like I think they own the Deep Rock Galactic devs, and that game's successful, so that they're obviously fine. Gearbox is obviously fine. Crystal Dynamics is fine. Like you look at things like they already closed, what was it, Square Enix Montreal, and then they have Eidos Montreal, who they also acquired, and now it's like, do they stay? Are they one that's going to be on the chopping block? Like who knows? There are those smaller studios, some of which probably never even heard of. Like there's studios in PlayOn Group and
I was gonna say a lot of the
THQ
studios that get affected the most by this are the ones that they like acquired right after they became like kind of THQ Nordic, like a lot of the ones we haven't heard of at all, because like I think those are the ones that are getting the chopping block first. I actually think like the Square Enix acquisitions that they currently have are actually like some of the safer studios, whether it's
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because I think they should lean into those. Like they need to lean into those ones. They like, you know how to make a good game. Teach us. We'll give you, obviously 17,000 is an absolutely ridiculous number. Like I don't know who they're employing and making too many games. So
well, you also have to remember too, like they just acquired the Lord of the Rings IP as an example, and there's a lot of people on staff that are just tied to Tolkien's work. And we just had Gollum, Kevin, the greatest video game release of the year, which by the way, isn't even, I know that's not their fault, but it also is going to be a commercial failure for it actually releasing, unfortunately for them. But luckily that doesn't play into it too much. It also makes me sad too because they're not benefiting from so Magic the Gathering. It's a card game, and they're doing a crossover with Lord of the Rings right now. And that's like very successful at the moment, where they have like they printed a 1 of 1 ring card, Kevin, that is currently fetching a price on the open market for $2.5 million because
Jesus.
they printed one of them in the entire world. So so people are buying up like $500 boxes of cards so then they can try and get this lottery ticket card of the One Ring. So there are certain things like that that are going to be making them money. So yeah, like I think a lot of the smaller stuff that that Embracer Group has, I think is going to be on the chopping block at this point.
Yeah, I know they said they were going to exploit the Lord of the Rings, which is like it's a
Yeah.
weird way to phrase that, but I understand what you're saying. Like you have IP that people like. Tomb Raider
Gollum
is
2.
obviously another one. Yeah, Gollum too. Oh my lord, I can't even. So, hopefully we'll see people land on their feet, go to other developer studios. But this is a sad for Embracer Group, but better than everyone shutting down. That's what I will say that because
Yeah.
there's a possibility, or there's a possibility they start selling off pieces. I know people have been like, well, Microsoft should come and pick up these. And I was like, y'all need to slow down. All right. Like
Yeah.
Embracer's not holding things for Microsoft. They're not, because I've seen that rumor where it's like they're an intermediary between. I'm like, no, all
No.
right, we're not doing that. They want to be a successful company.
Now, real talk before we move on, Kevin. How much of this it can be attributed to the Borderlands movie production budget? Like
Is
how
is
much is
that
being
movie
so
ever coming out?
I don't think it
Like,
ever is. I don't think that movie is ever coming out. Yeah, do you remember when when Randy Pitchford was on set with Kevin Hart and Kevin Hart just didn't want to
mhm.
high five him and stuff? Like, oh my god,
I wouldn't want to high five him either, to be fair. But like,
yeah,
I just, I swear we got the casting for that movie like 8 years ago, and
yeah,
nothing has
yeah.
happened since then.
That'll help them when it comes out. But yeah, like there's
Unless it
stuff like that that's
sucks,
happening.
unless it
Yeah,
sucks, let us just embrace us making a crap movie.
yeah.
All right, last story. It's gonna be a little quick one. The latest Xbox Game Pass update. So tomorrow, June 22nd, we get Need for Speed Unbound for cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. We get the Bookwalker for console and PC. June 27th, we get Bramble the Mountain King for cloud, console, PC. We also get Fist Forged in Shadow Torch for cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. June 29th, we get Story of Seasons, Friends of Mineral Town for console and PC. July 3rd, we get Arcade Paradise for console and PC. And July 5th, we get Sword and Fairy Together Forever for console and PC. Ryan, any of these games piquing your interest? I know it's quite a busy time for non-Game Pass games. Yeah, any of these you think you're going to set aside some time for?
So there's not any that I'm gonna set aside my time for because honestly the best game in here is one I've already played. I played last year, and that's Need for Speed Unbound. That game, very, very good and underrated racing game. Like that, it's kind of like a Forza Horizon knockoff in a way, but in a good way. Like I actually think they did like EA actually did a fantastic job with Need for Speed Unbound, and I think just a lot of people missed it last year. So I'm glad that it's finally in Game Pass as part of EA Play because I think that's a game that I hope more people give a chance to because I do think it's a really good racing game.
Mm. Well, there's a few. I haven't played Need for Speed, but there's a few in here. I've heard good things about Bramble the Mountain King. I know Bree over on our PlayStation show, No Limits. I think she really liked that one. I really like Fist, Forge of Shadow Torch. I played it when it came to PlayStation. I
Mhm.
was day one on that. Really good platforming Metroidvania. If you're into that, you play as a rabbit who's got like a giant mechanical arm, and you do some sweet action moves. Like really good game. I think I own it on PlayStation. I think I got it on PC too when it was given away at some point. But that one, definitely check it out. If there's nothing else you can, there's tons of games right now. So if you
Yeah.
got, but if none of those appeal to you,
Well,
I
if you're not
recommend
into
this
Final
one.
Fantasy, because you have to remember, like, there's a lot of people on Xbox who don't have a PlayStation 5
It's
or
true.
just aren't into Final Fantasy. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of good options for those people too.
I've heard good things about Arcade Paradise as well. I know it's a backtrackers game over in the Carpool community there.
Yeah.
And then Sword and Fairy Together Forever looks very interesting to me. I don't know if it's any good, but I like the art style and it's like Chinese mythology, like RPG going on. So might be one. I don't know when I could possibly get to it this year because there's 9,000 other RPGs to play, but
Yeah.
might be a backlog for sure.
Yeah.
But Ryan, that's all we got for this week. Thanks for hanging out with me, man. Had a great time. We talked about a lot of games, which is always what I enjoy the most, talking about games and less business stuff. But
Yeah.
if people want to know where they can find you, why don't you let them know?
Oh, well, first of all, I want to say huge thank you to having me on the show this week. You were such a gracious host, Kevin. I always appreciate coming over here to Save the Game Media and talking games with you. This was super fun. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. I'm getting mixed up here. You can find us on Twitter at Carpool Gaming as well. Or if you want to find more of me, of course, I am on the Xbox Drive every single week. That is our Xbox podcast. I'm also on the RPG Cave every single week, which is our role-playing game podcast. I also stream from time to time over at twitch.tv/Carpool Gaming Live. We did a full playthrough of Super Metroid today over there on that old Twitch channel. So you can hang out over there. And otherwise, youtube.com/Carpool Gaming. And I think that's about it for me. What about you? What about you, Kevin?
You can find me at the Muffin Mon on Twitter. It's a 1-7I and 0-7A. Follow us at Save Game Media to stay up to date with our latest. And like I said, you're gonna want to be following. Gonna want to review us on audio because we got some giveaways coming up. But until next week, Ryan, thank you so much. I will see everyone next time. Goodbye.